Hey, good morning, everybody. Today we're talking Pfizer stock, ticker symbol PFE. As a disclaimer, this is not investment advice. This is just a research video that I am putting together. So I hope that you find it educational as well as entertaining. It is early Monday morning, July 20th, 2020. The market is about to open up in a couple hours. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. I'm going to put you into a few different articles regarding the stock, so please enjoy.
Pfizer BioNTech news. How are you seeing it right now, Jim?
People ought to go and actually read the article, the interview with Albert Bourla, because this is not what you... Now, everyone is very excited about everything these days, but I do think that you have to understand that he says, listen, it's basically, it's free. To some extent, he says, we're not going to give it away to governments. We're going to charge governments a very, very nominal value. So I don't know how much they're going to end up making. But he just says, listen, we're kind of throwing $1 billion at it. And if it doesn't work, we're going to write it off. I did not find this as reassuring as others. I love the time frame. But I also do not like, hey, you know what? We're going to make a lot of the vaccine. If it works, great. If not, well, we're just going to write it off. That's not what you want to hear. And it could be a big write-off. Okay, I'm using a new term for Pfizer. I think they're rolling the dice. He says we will throw it if the FDA rejects it. He said we are just going to have to write it off and call it a day. Call it a day? I don't want. Do you want to be part of the 30,000 people who might be calling it a day?
So that news doesn't sound very promising. However, the company is still in the mix for the vaccine, so I'm going to try to be as optimistic and positive as I can. This next article, titled UK orders 90 million vaccine doses from Pfizer Valneva, came out earlier in the morning, and it really did shed some light as far as what Pfizer is doing with their vaccine orders. The UK has signed agreements to buy 90 million doses of vaccines in development by drug makers including Pfizer, BioNTech SC, and Valneva SC. The government said it has secured access to 3 different vaccine candidates, and it's setting up a program seeking 500,000 volunteers to participate in the clinical trials. This is all promising news. The company is making some advancements in the development of the vaccine, so regardless of what I'm hearing from the CEO as far as the optimism regarding and surrounding the company, I like to hear numbers, orders, volunteers, participants with the clinical trials. Quote, it's the right thing to be doing to be at the absolute front of the queue to make sure we're in the position to get those vaccines first when they become available. End quote. Education Secretary Gavin Williamson told the BBC during the government's media round on Monday. So it's promising to hear what the United Kingdom is doing to establish its vaccination orders from multiple companies. And it's even more promising to hear that one of those companies is Pfizer. Here's a clip of how a company establishes a vaccine and how it gets distributed throughout the world.
When a new pathogen emerges, our bodies and healthcare systems are left vulnerable. In times like these, there's an urgent need for a vaccine to create widespread immunity with minimal loss of life. So how quickly can we develop vaccines when we need them most? Vaccine development can generally be split into 3 phases. In exploratory research, scientists experiment with different approaches to find safe and replicable vaccine designs. Once these are vetted in the lab, they enter clinical testing, where vaccines are evaluated for safety, efficacy, and side effects across a variety of populations. Finally, there's manufacturing, where vaccines are produced and distributed for public use. Under regular circumstances, this process takes an average of 15 to 20 years. But during a pandemic, researchers employ numerous strategies to move through each stage as quickly as possible. Exploratory research is perhaps the most flexible. The goal of this stage is to find a safe way to introduce our immune system to the virus or bacteria. This gives our body the information it needs to create antibodies, capable of fighting a real infection. There are many ways to safely trigger this immune response, but generally, the most effective designs are also the slowest to produce. Traditional attenuated vaccines create long-lasting resilience, but they rely on weakened viral strains that must be cultivated in non-human tissue over long periods of time. Inactivated vaccines take a much faster approach, directly applying heat, acid, or radiation to weaken the pathogen. Subunit vaccines that inject harmless fragments of viral proteins can also be created quickly, but these faster techniques produce less robust resilience. These are just 3 of many vaccine designs, each with their own pros and cons. No single approach is guaranteed to work, and all of them require time-consuming research. So the best way to speed things up is for many labs to work on different models simultaneously. This race-to-the-finish strategy produced the first testable Zika vaccine in 7 months, and the first testable COVID-19 vaccine in just 42 days. Being testable doesn't mean these vaccines will be successful, but models that are deemed safe and easily replicable can move into clinical testing, while other labs continue exploring alternatives. Whether a testable vaccine is produced in 4 months or 4 years, the next stage is often the longest and most unpredictable stage of development. Clinical testing consists of 3 phases, each containing multiple trials. Phase 1 trials focus on the intensity of the triggered immune response and try to establish that the vaccine is safe and effective. Phase 2 trials focus on determining the right dosage and delivery schedule across a wider population. And Phase 3 trials determine safety across the vaccine's primary use population, while also identifying rare side effects and negative reactions. Given the number of variables and the focus on long-term safety, it's incredibly difficult to speed up clinical testing. In extreme circumstances, researchers run multiple trials within one phase at the same time, but they still need to meet strict safety criteria before moving on. Occasionally, labs can expedite this process by leveraging previously approved treatments. In 2009, researchers adapted the seasonal flu vaccine to treat H1N1, producing a widely available vaccine in just 6 months. However, this technique only works when dealing with familiar pathogens that have well-established vaccine designs. After a successful Phase 3 trial, a national regulatory authority reviews the results and approves safe vaccines for manufacturing. Every vaccine has a unique blend of biological and chemical components that require a specialized pipeline to produce. To start production as soon as the vaccine is approved, manufacturing plans must be designed in parallel to research and testing. This requires constant coordination between labs and manufacturers, as well as the resources to adapt to sudden changes in vaccine design, even if that means scrapping months of work. Over time, advances in exploratory research and manufacturing should make this process faster. Preliminary studies suggest that future researchers may be able to swap genetic material from different viruses into the same vaccine design. These DNA and mRNA-based vaccines could dramatically expedite all 3 stages of vaccine production. But until such breakthroughs arrive, our best strategy is for labs around the world to cooperate and work in parallel on different approaches. By sharing knowledge and resources, scientists can divide and conquer any pathogen.
Since we're looking at a company like Pfizer, which is in the race for the vaccine, I thought it would be helpful to look at an ETF such as XBI that holds multiple biotech and pharma companies that are also in the race for the vaccine. So it helps me just look at the performance overall over these time frames, and honestly, the ETF has been outperforming.
There are certain limitations to the way these are constructed. It's just not market cap versus individually weighted. It's the way the index is constructed as well.
That's right. It's full investment construction that's different across products. So when we look at XBI, that's going to take in the entire marketplace of biotech and pharma, whereas when we look at the iShares product, the iShares ETF really limits it to just one exchange. So if it's only NASDAQ listed names, so you start to remove some of the largest pharma and biotech companies out there. Example would be Takeda. Takeda is listed here at the New York Stock Exchange. 30 billion in market cap wouldn't even be considered in the iShares ETF.
And yet, Dave, have a certain appeal. I see a certain appeal to equal weighted because it's essentially an investment strategy. We've talked about this many times. With an equal weight, after a certain period of time, say every quarter, you're essentially going to sell your winners and you're going to buy some of the losers. So you are essentially reweighting all of the time. Is there something to be said for that kind of strategy?
I think for long-term investors, the proof is in the pudding.
You said it best. For long-term investors such as myself, it's nice to hold XBI or even IBB. And I hold them both because they are constructed differently. And to be honest, it's kind of hard to pick a winner in this vaccine race, at least in my opinion. I know we all have our favorites, and it is important to know what's going on with these companies. This is a list of all of the funds and companies that hold Pfizer in their portfolio. It's kind of crazy, but I find it fascinating. I'm going to drop you into my trading view on the 1 month trading window regarding Pfizer. I'm going to highlight some levels of support in the low 30s. It's had a nice run up to the mid 30s. I have a small position with Pfizer, so I'm definitely looking to add here. I could definitely see where more news will come out shortly. This week is supposed to be a big week for a lot of these biotech and pharma companies. So I'm just highlighting the levels of support, and I'm noticing a stair-stepping pattern into ascension. I feel confident adding here. And the cool thing about Pfizer is that it is a dividend play in my portfolio. So I would feel very confident with adding to my position here. Again, highlighting these levels of support. I don't see the price going down much more, and only more news with this company is going to be good, and I can see the price going up. So I'm going to leave it here. I really appreciate y'all's time. I hope everyone is staying safe out there. This is a pretty important topic. Again, if you could like, share, subscribe, that'd be awesome. Okay, y'all have a good week.